What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? I'm the spitting image of my grandpa on my dad's side. Both my parents are almost a foot shorter than me, but I'm almost the same height as him. When my mother got sick when I was a kid, my grandpa went to visit her daily for extended periods of time in the hospital. In his final months, she did the same. After he passed, we found out he kept a whole other family on the side in secret too. Looking back at my dad's military deployment history, it would also be dicey if she could have gotten pregnant by him around the appropriate time. Based on a collection of various hunches, I'm fairly convinced I'm the product of an affair between my mother and supposed grandfather. More disturbingly, this would probably be one of the most lighthearted revelations about my family. I'm convinced a neighbor poisoned our family dog. We got her when I was in 2nd grade. The poisoning happened when I was in college. Our neighbor left notes on our door threatening to hurt the dog if she pooped in their yard again, but our dog never went to their yard anyhow. She fell very ill very fast. She was in intense pain from her insides. She'd let out screams in pain. I don't know if you have ever heard a dog scream, that's the best I can describe it. It wasn't a cry, howl, or bark, it was a hunting scream. She couldn't get comfortable. I'd hold her to try to comfort her, and she'd be okay for a few seconds and then let out another scream. We had to put her down. It was the only humane thing to do. I was devastated. It was like losing a sibling. It still hurts, and this was almost 20 years ago. Not long after that, our area had a natural disaster. The whole city was flooded. We moved back in pretty quickly because my dad was a carpenter, but most people took longer to return, including that neighbor. Let's just say, every snake, reptile, rat, or any other nasty creature that my crazy dad came across was brought straight to their yard and inside their house. For months. I smiled to imagine the house of horrors that they returned to. It still wasn't enough, though. It's not my secret, but my mom's. And I'm not hiding it from everyone, just the person who it potentially matters to the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first, they were together for years, and were planning on getting married. He went away to college, my mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next. He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's the secret, my mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account, but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while using my account. Signed their messages saying, "I love you." My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I have that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened. That could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. A man broke into my home about 10 years ago. Well, kind of. He knocked, I answered the door, and he pushed his way in. He spoke about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and tried to extort me for protection, or he and his brothers of doom would come and kill me. He was huge. Ex-Navy, if he was to be believed. Drunk as hell, hand covered in blood holding a broken bottle. I was terrified. I told him to leave. He wouldn't. He was getting aggressive. I told him I would splatter his brains against the wall if he didn't. I didn't have a gun at the time. Anyway, he didn't leave. I went into my kitchen and grabbed a knife and sliced at him a few times. He staggered away, seemingly okay. I assumed he was all right, just wounded a bit. I never saw him again. A neighbor told me days later a man was found dead, some wounds on his arms. I can only guess he bled out, but I never got questioned, somehow. There was a lot of blood in and around my house. I lived in a pretty seedy area, so I guess the cops just didn't care. The guy was apparently a repeat criminal. I killed a man at least indirectly and have never told anybody. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom and dad were fighting just about every day. Well, I was napping on the couch when my mom came in very upset, and she shook me awake. She asked me if I saw the girl my dad brought home. I've always felt terrible for this because I hadn't seen anyone but my dad that whole day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual, but for some reason in my sleepy kid brain I answered yes. I said she was with him in their room. I'm honestly not sure why I lied like that, but they got a divorce shortly after, and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out my little sister is actually my half-sister, but that's a whole other story. Edit. For clarification, my dad had been cheating with my mom's sister and my mom was cheating with one of their friends to get back at him. She thought he was cheating with a different girl but found out later it was my aunt. Honestly, their relationship was on its way out. I don't feel bad about it now since a few years ago we found out my little sister is my half-sister from the affair my mom had. Funny, light-hearted story from my childhood. My little brother was in the shower. I could hear him singing. I put a coat on backwards, and a stocking cap pulled over my face, and waited outside the bathroom door. He opened the door still singing, and dancing, and I did the Frankenstein thing. He screamed and fell backwards, knocking the toilet completely over. Water went everywhere, the top of the toilet tank broke, shower curtain ripped down, and him laying on the floor in the middle of all this. I ran back down the hall, coat and hat off, and sauntered back casually. By then my mother and father and our sisters were there, and everyone is like, what the hell? I've heard him tell this story as proof of the existence of ghosts. He is now a 52-year-old bank manager with 2 kids and to this day he believes in ghosts. I don't feel a bit bad. My daughter is not biologically mine. Been with same girl since 2011, I relapsed hard in 2018 and she left me. I got clean and completely turned my life around. We got back together, and she was pregnant. We had 4 miscarriages, so I took it as a blessing. The first time I held my daughter she was maybe a week old and had the biggest smile. She only smiled for me and I instantly became dad in that moment. I love her, she keeps me clean and makes me want to stride as hard as I can every single damn day. Her real dad I guess is a meth head and has harmed many people. We still live in the same state and within 50 miles of him, and he has no idea I'm in the picture. It's getting scary and I can't seem to get my wife to want to move out quickly. Daughter is almost 4, so soon will be saying my name and understanding that I am dad. Oh, and my mom and dad don't know, more so my dad, because I have no idea how they would react since my mom kept me from my dad for 18 years. It all hurts every day, and I just want to leave this place and move far away so I feel safe with my daughter. I haven't told anyone, even my friends. I work in construction and seems like raising a kid that isn't yours is one of the biggest taboos there is. Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm a weak little bitch sometimes, but nothing matters more to me than my daughter. I have a son. Nobody but me and the mother knows. The mother was a really good friend who was somewhat homely and never had a boyfriend and was in her early 40s. She always wanted a husband and a child but decided at this point if she couldn't get a husband then she would have a child. $12,000 later she gets artificially inseminated with a whopping 12% chance of it taking. Well, it doesn't take and she's on a teacher's salary, and her dream of kids and marriage is drifting away, and especially with the kid, time is of the essence. So I stepped up. We hashed it all out, and we decided the story would be she got artificially inseminated and doesn't know the father. We went to a lawyer and paid a good little amount to basically absolve me of responsibility. To this day I see it like I donated to a bank and somebody used my sperm. It would have been $12,000 pop every time she tried, and with this method she could try as many times as it took. Luckily it only took a couple tries. We'd wait till she was ovulating and I would donate. So technically I have a son, but everybody thinks I'm childless. My wife, her mom and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors I discovered that the family who lived here before had a daughter that was mixed up with the wrong people. We had some random person knock on our door at night saying he needed gas. We are down a long driveway. No way you would randomly walk up to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for the people who used to live here, and then another time, Sunday morning, making pancakes for the family, I get a knock on the door, and it's 4 sheriff's officers saying they received a 911 call that hung up and it was from the house. We don't have a landline and I answered them. My wife and 2-year-old did not make any call. They mentioned a name of the previous occupants, and I let them know we moved in earlier this year, and they seemed okay with that and left. Anyways, I was doing some yard work and struck up conversation with the neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what was up. I told him the situation and he just goes, "Oh yeah, that family was messed up. The cops were probably being cautious considering the shooting." "What shooting?" I ask. He kinda looks at me with a sad, worried face. "The shooting in your house." "Wait," what I say, truly baffled. He then proceeds to tell me that about 2 years before the father in the house confronted his daughter and boyfriend he didn't like and shot and killed the boyfriend in the house. Our state doesn't have a disclosure law, so we never knew. I was blown away. All the strange happenings kinda made sense now. He said the friends of the victim had kinda terrorized them for a while cause the police were taking so long to press charges, slash tears, midnight fireworks, and other odd things that the neighbors hated. I was shocked but just said, "That's crazy. But hey, do me a favor and never tell my family about that. They are a little spooked by things like that."